Hello YouTube, welcome to my living room. We are drafting a quick skirt pattern. I just got home from work. I have this amazing leopard fabric that is fresh out of the wash and it is ready to get made into a mini tiered skirt and potentially a Ghani dupe if we have enough fabric. But let's go ahead and start with making our pattern. We are going to grab two different measurements, the first one being our waist measurement and the second one being the length that we want the skirt to be. The first measurement I took is my waist and it was 34 inches. We will start with that. And the length I want the skirt to be is 19 inches when finished. So we'll start with those notes and then we are going to make the dimensions of each tier. You can see my calculations here. I took my waist. Okay, so here's where we were. However, this being 34 should have been cut in half. And so now I've made this twice as big as it should be. So we're going to pause for today, pick this back up tomorrow, cut it down in half, and reconvene. Hello friends, it has been 2 days since the last clip, and obviously I'm in a different outfit, different mindset, different math. So I went wrong because I doubled this whole thing, and this is now twice the size it needs to be. So the lesson was learned there. We are going to seam rip this into half and then get back together. So going back to our original numbers, we went to cut our waist length in half to begin with. The fold was, cutting on the fold was all we needed. So we only needed 2 pieces, not 4. So I'm going to fix up this mistake and then we're gonna pick up where we left off. Okay, I am back with my pieces. They make a lot more sense now. I am going to construct this a little differently than how I was originally planning to. So I'm going to take my 2 panels and I'm going to do my 2 basting stitches this time on both pieces. And I'm going to lay them flat instead of going ahead and making them into the circular part. I'm going to stitch it all down the edges together at the end on the open end. We'll see how well I can show you that with my setup. But the starting is to go back and go in. I pulled all of my basting stitches out. I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 rows of that with my sewing machine at my longest stitch length, and then I will be able to cinch them together. I think I can show you my floor setup and then be able to put this thing together and call it a day. Sides pinned together, and this is feeling a little bit like a weapon because I pointed the needles outward, but regardless, we're going to power through. I put my machine back on my standard stitch length, which is a 3. You're going to have these very long, these are your basting stitch, the bobbin that you pulled in, just so that you don't get all confused like I am getting here with thread everywhere. You can snip that and do away with that. The less wild threads you've got, the better. But I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stitch in between or just around these 2 basting stitches without going over them if possible. That way they're easy to pull out. And then we will serge the edge of this to do a finished edge of the top and bottom piece together. We now have our top stitch is placed in between our 2 basting stitches. We are going to pull those out. They're usually pretty easy to seam rip because the tension is so loose. You can usually seam rip and yank it on out, but that is going to clean this up quite a bit. And also going to serge the edge. I'm gonna go ahead and do that first and then see if I feel up for seam ripping these out or not. This is Lazy Girl Sewing, so we'll see how we're at, but I'm gonna go ahead and serge this edge here. Now that this edge has been serged, you can see when you pull it open that you can see one of the basting stitches. So I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to seam rip that out, and then I will be putting the two sides together, serging on the top. We are so close to being finished. This has taken so much longer than it should. Now that we are nearing the end, I am going to go ahead and serge the top and bottom edges of this so that they're finished, and then we're going to put right sides together to close the skirt, and our last step will be to hem the base and to put the elastic in at the top. It is time to cut the elastic, and I'm just going to kind of put it where I want the skirt to fit and give it a little bit of a tug so that it's definitely like tight but nothing super tight, and then add a small bit so that I can stitch it together, and that is where we're going to cut it. I have now sewn the dress closed, or the skirt closed. This is where we're at. I'm going to iron down about a ½ inch here, and then about an inch, because that is what my elastic casing is, and I kind of just mimicked that and put it around me to get an idea if that was the right length for me, and it worked. So I'm going to head to the ironing board, press this top stitch around, and then we'll thread our elastic through and hem the skirt, and it will be finished. This long adventure together will be done. All right, we have pressed where our waistband is going, the casing. We're going to top stitch, leaving a gap so that we can thread it through, and then we'll close out when we're finished. We now need our safety pin as we pop it through, and let's find our opening. My opening is right here. We're going to thread this in and then top stitch it closed. To stitch this closed, we are just going to make it right sides or together as if it were laying flush within the skirt. We are going to draw a little X in our stitching and then tug the skirt open to kind of lay it flat and top stitch that hole closed. You can see the little X here. I'm just going to help this kind of get its way back inside. Waistband is done. Let's hem the skirt. I did a serged edge on the bottom, so I'm not going to iron this because it's pretty intuitive to do a little rolled hem. I'm just gonna go all the way along. All right, guys. Let's go try it